This was the worst prison in American history. In the sweltering heat of Georgia during the final desperate days of the American Civil War, a new kind of battlefield emerged. One without guns, but with just as many dead. Late in the conflict, prisoner of war exchanges between the Union and Confederacy broke down, due partly to the latter refusing to treat black soldiers as POWs and instead enslaving them, and partly due to the Union's shift to total war tactics. This led to a huge spike in demand for space to hold prisoners in the South. Andersonville Prison was opened in 1864, designed to hold up to 10,000 Union soldiers. But within months, more than 32,000 were crammed inside just 26 acres of bare dirt. There were no buildings and no beds. It was an open-air field surrounded by a tall wooden fence, guarded by Confederate soldiers under orders to shoot anyone who crossed a so-called dead line 20 feet from the fence. The prisoners' only water source was a shallow stream that also served as the camp's latrine, filled with the human waste of thousands of sick and dying men. Food shortages were also a problem across the Confederacy, and Union prisoners were unsurprisingly the last to receive rations, which they often didn't. Furthermore, prisoners weren't given clothing, cooking utensils, or wood that could be used for warmth or cooking. Malnutrition, exposure, dysentery, scurvy, and gangrene proliferated unchecked. With no medical care and almost no supplies, soldiers withered and rotted alive. There were stories of prisoners having to amputate their own infected limbs with dull knives. About 100 prisoners died at the camp every day. These conditions turned prisoners against one another and even prompted gangs to form and rob others of food, clothing, and other possessions. This often included beating and even murder. One group called the Raiders became so brazen that another group calling itself the Regulators formed to stop them, and ultimately held a trial that ended with 6 men hanged inside the prison, something Confederate guards watched with amusement. By the time Union forces liberated the camp in 1865, more than 13,000 men had died there, nearly a third of all those who'd been imprisoned over the 14 months of the camp's existence. Soldiers who liberated it described those they found there as human skeletons amid hellish scenes of desolation. One of Andersonville's commanders, Henry Wirtz, was later convicted of war crimes that included ordering or personally committing beatings, shootings, and turning dogs loose on prisoners. He would become one of the only Confederate officials executed for war crimes, something that made him a martyr in some Confederate sympathizers' eyes. A monument to him was erected in Andersonville, Georgia in 1908 by the United Daughters of the Confederacy. That monument still stands today and is the site of an annual memorial service.